Separation and divorce are hard, and they are common. About half of marriages end in divorce. So while it may feel isolating, you are far from alone. But often what comes next is even harder. Co-parenting. How do you raise healthy, secure kids with someone you are no longer with, especially when there is anger, resentment, or deep hurt involved? Research consistently shows that it's not the divorce itself that impacts children most. It is the level of ongoing conflict they are exposed to afterwards. When conflict becomes chronic, hostile, or litigious, it can turn into what sometimes we call a toxic or high conflict divorce. And that is where children can really struggle. So today we are going to talk about how to protect yourself and your children from that kind of divorce. Because here's the truth. While we can't always control whether our marriage ends, we can influence how it ends. At Toronto Family Therapy and Mediation, we often talk about aspiring to a good divorce. That doesn't mean painless. It doesn't mean easy. It means two parents, even in the midst of hurt, choosing to lower the temperature, to prioritize their children, and to work towards a cooperative, respectful parenting relationship over time. Today, I am so glad to be sitting down with my colleague, Nicole Khaitman, an incredible therapist on our team at Toronto Family Therapy and Mediation, and a true expert in separation and divorce, with deep experience guiding families through even the most complex and high conflict situations. Together, we are going to get really practical about how to co-parent with a difficult or angry ex. We will talk about what high conflict actually is, how to prevent it from escalating, different co-parenting styles, how to set boundaries, and how to protect your kids from the emotional fallout. If you are at the beginning of a separation or you are already in a challenging co-parenting dynamic, this conversation can be really helpful for you. Let's start with the definition. When we say high conflict divorce, what do we actually mean?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here again.
I love being here. Have you here.
Thank you. High conflict divorce, that's a big one. It's about it's more than two people who are grumpy at each other. It's two people who are engaged in relentless, ongoing, Olympic level conflict. And, I'm talking tremendous amount of court appearances, hostile communications, allegations out the wazoo. And unfortunately, the kids are embroiled in that, and it's detrimental to them. And I also think it's detrimental to the parents as well.
Okay. And do you see that often? Like when you have all these therapy clients that you see every single day, like would you define a lot of the couples you work with as a high conflict divorce?
It's hard to say. I have a lot of parents who do it well. And then I have a lot of parents who, unfortunately are engaged in high conflict divorces. And it's so difficult. We can't really blame them because it's about their biology versus character. They're not bad people or bad parents. Most aren't per se.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, they have feelings and they're reactive, and pain makes us reactive. So we can't blame them for reacting negatively towards each other and towards their kids because they haven't coped, they haven't healed. And now we're asking them to work collaboratively together to make real big decisions regarding their kids when they're not on the same page, let alone the same team. And they have to be, even more so than when they were together.
Right. So I think we should normalize something here is that when couples are married and they're getting a divorce, they're likely fighting. It is a really hard time in their relationship, right? It's like the first few months or when they're deciding to get a divorce, it's often very intense. Like people are hurt, people are grieving, they're arguing, like they're leaving their relationship, their marriage for reasons. Right? Whether it's related to, opposite parenting or financial issues or, just division of household labor issues. There's all these stressful things that contribute to two couples actually taking the steps to separate and get a divorce. So their emotions are intense. So that means over the first month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, we should expect that people are fighting, that couples are actually at conflict with one another. So that is why it is such a critical period of time to get some help, to intervene. So let's talk about prevention. How do we prevent couples from like getting into this high conflict divorce? What can we do to help them?
It's such a good question, and it needs to be asked more often. The only thing that I could recommend is you spend years spending time together. I would take a year to slow things down, regulate yourselves, get a therapist before you hire lawyers. Lawyers are amazing in so many ways, but at the end of the day, they're not trained to deal with your nervous systems. And if they're not trained to deal with your nervous systems, that could cause more issues in the future.
Well, they're not trained to deal with emotions, right?
Exactly.
Like they're there to, they're there to focus on the parenting issues and the financial issues, which are the most heightened things, and which are going to be tied to really heightened emotions. So one of the things you and I always talk about, because we constantly see people at the brink of separation and then taking the steps to separate, we always talk about what would have happened if this couple slowed it down. Why do they have to move so quickly?
They have to move quickly because they want to get out of that atmosphere, right? But they're not realizing the negative impacts on themselves and the kids if they do it too quickly, right? There's no closure, there's no peace, and they're taking that anger, that resentment with them outside of cohabitating together, and it causes a shitstorm, unfortunately, for the whole family.
Right.
So if there's an ability to just slow things down. I can't emphasize that enough. Slow it down. Take the time to heal for yourself. Stop blaming the other person. Stop looking at the other person. Stop trying to control the other person. Stop wanting the other person to change. Focus on yourself and focus on what needs to happen next in a pragmatic way. Compartmentalize, get therapy, do the work, and make sure your kids aren't impacted, because they are. They see it all. And they feel it all.
So we're talking about prevention, right? Slowing things down, letting people de-escalate, not be so reactive when they make decisions about their separation. And lawyers are definitely essential for legal advice, but they are not trained to regulate trauma responses. When people go straight to legal positioning while emotionally flooded, conflict can escalate so quickly. So I guess, let's talk about this. How do you think therapy can help?
So therapy can help in a lot of ways. First of all, to help them heal individually and then learn how to get back down to basics. They need some form of friendship. They need some kind of foundation. They can't make big decisions if they are emotionally dysregulated and the two hate each other and they're enemies. It just doesn't work.
Right.
So I do a lot of co-parent work with couples that are more on the, and we can talk about this later, the co-parent style of like fiery foes, angry associates. And it's interesting because I see the difference after a few sessions where they're able to be more cooperative and collaborative. And that is always the goal. It's always the goal. And what I do is I really just help them to get to know them individually first before I meet with them together. And then just work backwards. Let's turn the temperature down a little bit. Let's hate each other less. And let's get down to the feelings of how did you two get together in the first place? There's obviously things that you liked about each other. Maybe you didn't work as a couple, but maybe you can work as cooperative colleagues. And that is my goal, to get them there, right?
Okay. So I think our audience here is going to really want to hear exactly what you're talking about. So what Nicole's talking about is different co-parenting styles that have been labeled in research that kind of shape the way that co-parents interact with each other. So we're going to go through each co-parenting style. And then, Nicole, I want you to explain it. So there's the one that we call co-parenting, co-parents who are perfect pals. Tell us about it. What does it mean to be perfect pals with your co-parent?
So perfect pals, it's self-explanatory. They're best friends. They go to each other's houses. The kids are, can spend time with both of them together every single day. They can go on family vacations together. It really is like one family, two homes, but more enmeshed. And a lot of people think, oh, perfect pals is like the be-all end goal of co-parenting, right? But it's actually not, because it can cause confusion for the kids. Like if they get along so well, why the hell aren't they together?
But I can imagine that's what children want, right? Like, why wouldn't they want their parents to live separately, but still be best friends, still have a friendship, still be able to interact and talk about things, still vacation together, celebrate Thanksgiving together? Wouldn't that be a wonderful way to separate and divorce?
Yes and no. It's more leaning towards the no, because the kids don't understand the difference. And then in their futures, they're going to think, hey, I could get married, but also divorce and be best friends. And it gets muddled for them, especially depending on their age and stage of development.
Yes, I remember having one child say to me, he was like a 9-year-old boy, and he had these parents who got along fabulously. And he said, I don't understand. My parents get along so well. They're such good friends. Why can't we all just live together? And why can't my parents just be together? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And what are you supposed to say to him about that? Like, what are the parents supposed to say? Oh, I just don't like your father, or I don't like your mother, or I don't like your, I don't like your other parent in that way. Like it's cumbersome.
It's a bit confusing, right? And it kind of leads children to, have those kind of fantasy thoughts that my parents will actually get back together again.
Exactly.
Yes. But so although we do really encourage parents, listen, if you're friends, then keep that going, because it still can be beautiful. It can be very loving and warm for the children. And it's definitely better than fiery foes and angry associates. So, Nicole, why don't you go through those two co-parenting styles?
I don't want to. Okay, fine, I will. Angry associates, a lot of people are stuck in this phase where it's like passive aggressive comments, texts after 9 p.m. Never text your ex after 9 p.m. That's just a goal, like rule of thumb.
Is that a rule of thumb? Don't text after 9 p.m.
That's my rule of thumb.
Okay.
Nothing good comes after 9 p.m. text to your ex. Okay,
too late.
Yes,
Nicole's saying it's way too late.
I'm trademarking this. Okay,
got it.
So, passive aggressive comments, texts, hostile communications. Eye rolls, emojis that are rude. Just really immature behavior. And I want to talk about emotional immaturity, because it's so I could tell how mature an adult is depending on where they are situated in the 5 parenting styles, honestly.
Okay.
Like, if you're going to be tit for tat and I'm going to get him back or I'm going to get her back all the time, that just tells me there's a lot more growing up to do and they should grow up.
But that's a natural way of life. Like we believe, some of us believe in revenge. Like we believe in an eye for an eye and getting people back. Like it's just the way that some people grew up and are accustomed to.
Yeah. In high school, Joanna.
Okay.
In high school.
I better go back to high school soon. Okay.
It's very...
So we shouldn't do an eye for an eye, and we shouldn't get people back for what they did to us.
No.
That doesn't work.
No, it does not work.
Okay. So tell me, so angry associates, they're like that kind of people, revenge, eye for an eye, or is that fiery foes?
That's more fiery foes. That's level 4. That's really, really, really intense. It's like I'm talking years and years of court appearances, false allegations to police, CAS, hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars spent in court fees just to change motions. And they become fixated and they're really stuck in this phase. It's very hard to get these types of families out of it. There's allegations of alienation and negative influencing and coaching, and the kids, oh my God, these poor kids, they're so damaged. They need so much help, and most suffer from serious mental health issues. And then the parents are wondering why.
So it's really like the angry or the fiery foes are really parents who are so deeply hurt and deeply in pain that they lose their insight on how they're reacting. And, they lose their insight on how their behavior might be impacting the children. So, like in my therapy room, for example, I try not to point fingers or blame anyone. I try to educate the parents on these different parenting styles so they understand that maybe one of these parenting styles is shaping the way that they're co-parenting. So if they learn about them, they can change their ways. And there's another co-parenting style called dissolve duos. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what that means?
Yeah, so it's basically when one parent is checked out or disappears or just, isn't as invested because they're so tired of the fight, which also isn't healthy or good, right?
So they're checked out.
They're checked out.
They're dissolved.
They're dissolved. They don't want to deal with it. And, we're in this era of avoidance, right? Unblock, unfriend. Oh, this is toxic. Forget about it. But if you have kids, you don't have that ability to do that quickly.
So do they just ignore each other?
They ignore each other. They're not present in the kids' lives as much because it just is safer for them.
Right. Wow. I can't even imagine that, right? Because like when you co-parent, you have to like share information day to day. I mean, kids growing up, there's so much information that needs to be shared between parents about their lunches, about their haircuts, about their like homework. I mean, their homework, you can't do a project in one parent's house and have it completely like segregated from the other parent's house. That's not fair to the children, right? Right. So we list all these co-parenting styles. There's one more that we didn't talk about, and that's cooperative colleagues. Tell me a little bit about that parenting style.
So cooperative colleagues is the golden standard of co-parenting styles. If you can be a cooperative colleague with your ex, you have won at life, in my opinion. You are cordial. You can sit together at a graduation. You can shoot the shit, say hello, be respectful, talk to each other, engage, collaborate, communicate, talk to each other about everything that's going on with the kids. And the kids love that. They need it. They love it. And they thrive with those types of interactions.
So let's do a trivia question right now. So what is the best co-parenting style? Is it perfect pals? Is it dissolve duos, angry foes, angry associates, or cooperative colleagues?
Obviously, it's fiery foes. I'm just kidding. It's cooperative colleagues, right? There's boundaries in place. The kids aren't confused. There's not much of an enmeshment. It's a very, there's just respect and good expectations of conduct, and the kids are never involved or embroiled in any kind of issues between the parents.
Is it very businesslike to be a cooperative colleague?
It's very businesslike, but even more so than that, it's chummy. I like the word chummy.
What is chummy? Like, tell me about chummy and co-parents. How are co-parents chummy?
You can ask about each other's day in front of the kids.
You can greet them?
You can greet them.
Oh, wow.
You can hug them.
You can hug.
You can
cooperative colleagues
yes,
hug?
You could hug.
I didn't even know that. Well,
I hug my colleagues. I mean, maybe I should ask consent, but
right, yeah. Right. Okay. So we're aiming towards becoming cooperative colleagues. So we need to intervene early. Parents need to know about this parenting style again so they can shape their way to become a cooperative colleague. Now, let's talk about it. You must see angry foes or fiery foes and angry associates every day. Tell me, how do you guide them? How do you help them change their parenting style so they can do something different?
So it's not really about changing their co-parent style as much as me helping them realize what they're doing is harmful to themselves and their kids. So in order for me to get them there, I need to get to know them. I need to understand what unresolved traumas that they have. Why are they so angry at the other parent? What I find with parents in these categories of co-parenting styles is that they hate their exes more than they love their kids, and they're stuck. It's very hard to move them. It's easier to move them from the angry associates category, much more so than the fiery foes.
Yeah, I don't know if they hate their kids. Or they hate their ex more than they love their kids. I think that they lose insight. They don't understand the level of their anger, the level of their pain. And if that is not addressed, if their pain, if their wounds, if their fear is not addressed, then it comes out in this constant dispute with their co-parents. And we can really help. I think we can really help when they come to us like that. We can even help more before they get to us like that, because we can give them the tools to, be a cooperative co-parent and to address their hurt and their anger and their pain so they can start a new chapter in their lives. One that's cooperative, one that's full of love for their children, and one that's full of respect and civility for their ex, but not anger. So, I think we can help. Do you think we can help?
I definitely think that we can help. And I totally agree with you. Yeah, they lose insight but that insight is so paramount because they need to be thinking about what is the impact on the kids? What are my kids seeing? Because everything they do, the kids mimic. They embody how they deal with conflict. That's how they're going to deal with conflict. How the parents have good critical thinking skills. That's how the kids are going to have good critical thinking skills.
But I think we need to preface that parents need to expect dysregulation, high emotions, high stress in the crux of separation. It's sad. It's not perfect. It is a hard time in your life. It is a major loss. There's major grieving. And unfortunately, life is really hard at times.
Great. Keep it away from the kids.
Okay. So how do we do that? I know that you have this amazing toolkit where you teach parents how to be good parents, how to be amicable, how to be cooperative co-parents so that their kids can grow up and understand that their parents are divorced. It's not perfect. They don't have a perfect life, but their parents do it well. They wear divorce well. How do we help them?
I have a lot in my toolkit. I really just teach them. I give them structures on when and how to communicate. And when and how to communicate is essential. These people don't know how to communicate. I teach them how to communicate using the BIF method, which is very popular in
the BIF method?
Divorce separation realm. It's the brief, informative, friendly, and firm approach. So keep things light, keep things cool, keep things neutral. Don't engage. Don't take the bait. Don't defend in texts, on calls. Don't scream. Don't engage.
I always get the F mixed up. Is it firm or factual?
It's firm.
Okay, but I think factual is a good one to add. We should name it BIFFF. Or BIFF.
You'd never want to say the word factual in the realm of high conflict divorces because that's all they think about and focus on. I'm right. These are my facts. You're wrong. It's his fault. I keep away from that word. I hate that word.
Oh, okay. I've learned something new today. I'm never using the word factual. So when I advise my separated couples to keep it factual, that actually escalates conflict.
Thank you. Yes.
So I'm just going to take that out of my toolkit. That's out. But thank you for teaching me something today.
I'm always here for you.
You know what? I actually want to stick to that fact or that piece of advice because you know what? I think that we often think that we know factually what's in the best interest of our children and where we can actually have two different opinions about what's in the best interest of our children, right?
100%. And also asking the children what is in their best interest, not about the divorce, but how are they feeling? How are they doing? Checking in, making sure they're okay. Because all of this high conflict stuff, especially in the angry foes and fiery foes categories, has negative impacts on them.
Okay, so I want to talk real with you right now and get to the crux of things. And I know this is like a kind of a bigger question, but what are some of the worst high conflict cases you've ever seen? What happens?
The worst that I've ever seen is when a kid is estranged from one parent. That's the most disheartening for me, because research has shown that kids need both parents, right? And one parent isn't the judge of how another parent parents, right? You can only control the parenting you do. You can't control the parenting that another person does. But the kids need both, because that kid is half of both of you, both of them.
So that is the highest level of conflict, when a kid is estranged from one of their parents, but they previously had a good relationship with that parent.
Exactly.
Okay. Like, I want to really preface that, because there are kids who are estranged from parents for justified reasons if there was abuse or really, really problematic parenting. But we're talking about a different scenario.
We are, but also we aren't, because even though parents can be abusive or inappropriate, etc., it's important for that to be worked upon, to be repaired. Now, in extreme situations like sexual abuse, fine, granted, that is an extreme. Mm-hmm. But I'm talking about, parents who lose their cool and make mistakes. There needs to be an ability or an open, safe space for that to be worked upon. We're again in an era of, okay, like, let's cut off because somebody did something wrong to me.
Right.
And I don't like that. I want kids to lean in. I want them to get support. And I don't want them to run away and harbor this for the rest of their lives and never speak to the parent. If a parent did a kid wrong, talk about it in a therapeutic setting. Work it out.
And I think let's qualify that for a little bit, because I think that just because you lose your cool, which I probably do quite often, doesn't mean that you're abusive. It means that you lose your cool, right? And we're allowed to lose our cool because we are emotional human beings.
Exactly. And I can't stress that enough. There's a difference between abusive parenting and parenting where you just lose your shit sometimes, like all of us have done. But if you're embroiled in a high conflict divorce, you did something wrong. Oh, I'm going to call the authorities. Oh, let's go bring our kid to the police station and make a statement. And then all shit breaks loose.
It's really hard to be monitored 24/7. It's like some of these parents are under surveillance. Are they making a mistake? Is there a misstep? Are they yelling? Are they feeding the kids too much sugar? Are they not bringing them to their extracurricular activities? All these things I've mentioned are normal parts of parenting, but they're under scrutiny in a high conflict divorce.
Yeah, and they're like in a fishbowl, and of course a shoe is going to drop somewhere, and it's so much pressure and anxiety and stress.
And I really want to mention something, and I really want to feel for these parents, is that parents don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, today I'm going to harm my kids because I'm in a high conflict divorce. They don't realize the impact that they are having on children. They also don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, I want to spend all the hard money I've earned over the years and all the money in my mortgage on litigation. That's not what they want to do. They just get trapped in this cycle.
They get trapped in the cycle. And they also think that their kids' mental health issues have nothing to do with them. But every single high conflict family that I've ever worked with, and I've worked with a ton, have all told me the same thing. I go, do your kids have mental health issues? Yes. Anxiety, depression, ADHD, everything. They're on meds. They can't sleep. They wet the bed. They have so many negative impacts on them. And the parents are just thinking that's a separate subject. Like, it's separate from them.
So you feel like it's like a direct correlation to the high conflict divorce.
100%.
Okay, so let's talk about it. What is the correlation? How are children impacted by high conflict divorce?
As I've mentioned, like they're stressed out, their grades are declining, they have depression, they're on meds way too early, they're behavioral, they act out. Some are peacemakers, some become parents, they become parentified, their roles change.
You're just listing 100 things.
I know. I'm so sorry.
Information you're listing right now.
But
it seems bleak for kids.
It's very bleak, but also the kids are the one in power and control, right? They realize too, oh, my parents don't talk, they argue. I could take advantage of this. They're very smart. They're very strategic. And if you think about it, these kids of high conflict divorces get everything they want. And who is fighting in the background? The parents.
Oh my God. You're just like really emphasizing such an important point right now. The kids get everything they want.
Everything.
And so what they don't have is building confidence and building esteem and stress management tools when they don't get what they want. They're never told no, because if they're told no, that's an argument between them and one of their parents. And that's going to go right back to the ex and not look like kind of fair bode, poorly on them.
Exactly. And the parents aren't allowed to discipline, like we talked about, right? Like discipline is abuse. Right. And it's like, what's the threshold here?
And I can tell you, some of the kids I've, working with children, and you work with children too, some of the children, unfortunately, who need the most direction or the most discipline or predictability or structure are kids who are from separated families whose their entitlements go up, right? They believe that because their parents are divorced, they are entitled to everything else in life.
And I get it. Like, parents feel guilty, like we broke the family, etc. But if you could reframe that for the kids and just say, listen, you guys are going to be resilient. You're going to land on the balls of your feet no matter which way you're thrown. Life's hard. Life's unpredictable. We're going to get a divorce, but we're choosing not to impact you. And life is beautiful and things can remain the same. Our love for you has not changed, but they don't give that message to them. Instead, they weaponize the kids and use them as leverage to continue a war that will never end without proper supports.
I have another serious topic that I want to talk to you about, and it's actually something that doesn't get talked about often, but people who are married, when they divorce, they often treat each other really poorly, even to the point of emotional abuse. They name call, they insult each other. They really mistreat each other, which is terrible. It's terrible for spouses. It's terrible for the kids to see, but it's actually a reality sometimes for couples who are getting a divorce. But it doesn't mean that parent or that person who treated their spouse poorly treats their children poorly. Now, it's no excuse, but it's not a direct translation, or like a direct association. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that to an extent.
Tell me about that.
Because kids, even though a bad spouse doesn't equal bad parent, those kids are watching that parent, how they treat their mom or dad or two moms, two dads, whatever the case may be. They're watching. And so even though a person could be a bad spouse but a good father, or as an example, if they're treating their mother poorly, those kids are going to grow up thinking that that's normal.
So it's got to stop, right?
Yes.
And people don't know how to rewire their brain. Like, couples don't know how to rewire the brain because they treated each other so poorly in the marriage, right? So now they need help. They need to be taught, how do we treat the person we treated so poorly with respect and compassion?
Well, it just goes back to my previous example of people becoming stagnant or they stop developing at a certain point, and it's very high school like, right? Like, I'm gonna get revenge. I'm gonna hurt you like you hurt me. I'm not gonna let this go. And it's stubbornness and ego and pride, and that ego needs to die in order for this to work. The vulnerability needs to be ramped up. Empathy needs to be at the forefront of all of this, right?
But they weren't able to show empathy for each other in their marriage or in their relationship. How are they going to show empathy for each other once they separate?
That's usually not the case in the very beginning of the relationship. So they do have it within them to start a relationship and have a relationship blossom to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. And then things go awry because of life stressors, most likely.
You just pointed on something that I often bring up in therapy, is that you once treated that individual, that your spouse, when you were married, with respect and love. You had to at one point. So think about that time, right? Don't forget about that person. That person is made of parts and still has those key traits in them. So start to respect and have some compassion for your co-parent, even when you're an angry associate or a fiery foe.
Especially because your ex is your kid's, parent. And that parent is half of your kid. And so what happens if your kid starts triggering you or acting like your ex, right? What are you going to do? You're going to react the same way? No, you're going to have compassion and empathy and hopefully be a good parent. Can you do the same? Can you give the same courtesy and consideration to the mother or father of that kid or caregiver?
Mm-hmm. You give such excellent advice.
Thank you.
Really want to recap on what we're talking about today. So we're talking about high conflict divorce, what it means, and how to prevent it, how to shift from a high conflict state to a cooperative state. And I want you to share a successful outcome. Tell us about some families that you've worked with who were fiery foes or angry associates or really high conflict for years, but you shifted the landscape of their relationship. You've shifted them. Tell us about that.
So it's so hard to pick one because I've worked with so many, and all of them are success stories. No, most are.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. I'm just sending everybody to you.
You have to. I'm available, but I'm not. I'm very busy. Okay, so just thinking back to your question, Joanna, which is such a good question. I think one of the biggest ones or examples that I could think of was two people. It was a court-mandated reunification case. And it was a fiery foe couple, and they haven't been in a room together virtually or in person in like over 10 years. And I somehow managed to get them on a Zoom call together, and they started talking. Usually they had supports like lawyers, and they had trials involved, and one of the kids was estranged from the other. And I just brought down the temperature. I just started from scratch, getting to know each of them for a number of sessions. And then when I thought it was okay and safe for them to be on the same call together, I did it, and it worked out beautifully, and it continued for like a year.
So when you're doing co-parenting work, you have to do the prep work. You have to meet with each individually, separately. Get their story, hear their perspectives, hear their anger, hear their fears, and get them into a more regulated place so they can become ready to speak to their co-parent. And I have to tell you, virtual technology is a great safeguard for co-parents to start to work towards cooperation.
For sure. And a lot of these angry foes and fiery foes and angry associates do a lot of parallel parenting versus co-parenting. And parallel parenting has a bad reputation, right? It's like, oh, I've given up on co-parenting. I'm just going to have nothing to do with my kid's ex, and that'll be it. No hellos. I'm not out of sight, out of mind, etc. And look, in some extreme cases, that's what's needed in order to ensure that the kids don't bear witness to arguing or conflict.
Right.
So in those extreme cases, like the case that I provided to you, they were doing a parallel parenting approach. And yeah, the kids were okay. They were better than having the two interact and have them set off with angry outbursts in front of them. Is it ideal? No. But is it sometimes the best thing you could do for yourselves and your kids? Absolutely. Do what you need to, right?
Right. Maybe there needs to be an in-between model, like somewhere in between parallel parenting and cooperative parenting for the parents who aren't ready to be cooperative, but they need to move out of that parallel stage.
We should create one.
We need to create one.
What would we call it?
To come. I don't know. We need to really be thoughtful
about the Joanna Nicole
this.
parenting style of all time, 2026.
Absolutely. But what I'm realizing right now as we near the end of this podcast is that our audience doesn't necessarily know what parallel parenting is. So can you please describe it for them so we don't leave them hanging?
Yeah, for sure. So parallel parenting is basically you don't have any direct or indirect contact with your kid's caregiver. That's it. You don't talk, you don't speak, you don't share information, which I don't even know how that's possible to do, but in some cases they do it and they're successful at it. They keep it, everything's, monitored by a third-party app, and that works for them, and that's great.
So they share information, but they don't talk jointly. They're not having conversations. It's all done through an email or a parenting app. So it's very structured. And these people, just to give you some more information about parallel parenting, these people have often very long parenting plans with lots of principles, lots of rules, and lots of ways to interact with the co-parent that are under governing principles. And we could have a whole other podcast about parallel parenting. And we do offer, family mediation, where sometimes parallel parenting is actually really needed, especially during those more high conflict periods. But as you get some support and guidance, again, we're hoping to de-escalate, to lower the temperature, to regulate some of those intense emotions so you can move towards some aspects of cooperative parenting or something in between. Nicole, thank you for coming today. What I'm really taking away from our conversation is that while you can't control your ex, you can control your own responses. And by focusing on clear communication, strong boundaries, and keeping your child's experience at the center of every decision, you can create a sense of safety and stability, even in the midst of conflict. To everyone listening out there, please know this is some of the hardest work out there. If today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with another parent who might need to hear it. And if you would like to work with Nicole or any member of our team, you can find us at torontofamilytherapy.com. We work with families across Ontario in person and virtually.